Welcome to the Having It All podcast, the show about what it takes to live an abundant, loving life. My name is Matthew Bivens, and each week I'm helping you get out of your head so that you can truly have it all. Let's do it. What's going on, everybody? Matthew Bivens here, and welcome to another episode of the Having It All podcast. Today, I'm giving you all a look into my relationship. Haven't really done this before, and I'm not entirely sure how it'll be received, but I think that what I've put together for you is pretty cool. I'll give you some quick context. Sarah and I, that's my wife's name, by the way, Sarah, we host a podcast called Doing It at Home, which is all about home birth. And on that show, her and I co-host it, and we interview different moms and different families. Well, we receive feedback. We receive emails and iTunes reviews all the time talking about how dynamic we are together and how much fun we seem to be having as a couple, and people are just genuinely giving us feedback on our relationship. And so we wanted to go on our podcast and first of all say thank you to those folks for recognizing that in our relationship, but also to say, hey, listen, what you're experiencing is the result of a lot of reps, of a lot of intentional work on ourselves and on our relationship. And so we did an episode, it was about an hour long, and we talked about our relationship. We talked about the ups and the downs. We shared some very, very recent and relevant examples of fights that we had had and how we navigated through them, because we want to paint a full and complete picture for our listeners. And I thought that what we talked about was so relevant and so perfect for the Having It All audience that I wanted to publish that conversation on this show. So that's what you're about to listen to. And because, I spent an hour talking with my wonderful wife, I wanted to bring her on here on the intro and say, Mama, I appreciate you. You're amazing. And tell everybody real quick what they're going to be listening to in our episode.
Well, hello, everyone. What I think you're going to get from it is some real, raw, awesome conversation and just some of our experience and some feedback and takeaways on how to build, grow, have a relationship that is in alignment with you and your values and the all way, the abundant, loving life way. So that's what I think it is.
Boom. So check this out. Whether you are in a relationship or not, the things that we talk about really going to help you navigate yourself and your emotions more powerfully and more effectively. So there's something in it for everyone. And I really, really, really want to hear your feedback on this one. So send me an email, mattcbivens@gmail.com. Let me know what you think. And the last thing is that this episode does have some spicy language in it. So you definitely do not want to listen with young ears around. Okay, enjoy. All right, you want to do this?
Yeah, let's do this. So I don't know what we're going to title this yet. I guess we'll see where this conversation goes and what we can extrapolate as far as the main theme or topic. It's just something that came up very recently and very, very organically. And I thought, let's talk about this on the show. So I want to start by reading two very awesome outreaches that we have received, an email and a review, and that will kind of lead me into what I want to talk about.
Do you want to give a one-sentence description of what we're going to talk about?
So
or you want to keep the tease, because you're teasing. There's a lot of teasing going on.
I don't know. What do you think's better?
Yeah, tell them what we're going to talk about.
Okay, so we're going to talk about our relationship, essentially.
Exactly.
Aspects of our relationship. And I mean, that's the most simple way to put it. We're going to talk about our relationship.
Yep.
So not a birth story, not birth world talk, but I think it's a part of it because we are now parents and we've received feedback on the show about some of these things. And so I think it's worth talking about. This is our show and we can do whatever the heck we want. So
True. Cool. So go ahead and get into this email from the only other person I've ever known to have the same name as my little sister. My sister's name is Carrie, Kari. And here we go. We have an email from a Carrie.
Yes.
That's super cool to me.
Yeah. So I'm going to read an excerpt of her email because she goes on to tell us some other cool things. Like she shares an article with us. But the part I want to share is, first of all, she says, I want to start off by thanking you. I have binge listened 80 plus episodes of Doing It at Home in the last month and a half. Go on, get it, girl. I have always been unsure of myself, and because of the ways you guys empower each other and yourselves, I have tried to bring that into my life as well. Every day I remind myself I'm a beautiful goddess in my own womanly way, and it has completely changed my frame of mind. Also, I have showed my fiance a few episodes just because I'm fascinated with home birth and absolutely love the way you and Matthew uplift and talk to each other. I truly want that for us, and it's so inspiring to see a positive relationship after having a life filled with negativity. I so greatly appreciate your episodes with life lessons, planning, and just overall knowledge. We are not pregnant yet, but we are both so excited to expand and see our family grow one day. So that's that excerpt that I wanted to share, and thank you, Carrie, so much for that.
Yeah, thank you.
And then the other one I want to share, I don't think we've read this. If we have, I am so sorry, and #mombrain all over the board, but I don't think that we have. It's a pretty long, awesome review from Stacy, and I'm just going to read a portion of the review. It says, okay. Also, I'm not sure if anyone has ever told you this before, but by listening to you two speak and reflect together, you convey a truly special beauty and strength within your relationship. And my husband and I are inspired by the way you two interact together. While I am a very verbose individual, my husband often struggles to find words for his thoughts and feelings. And listening to Matthew speak so eloquently about his thoughts and feelings has given my husband the words and courage to express himself as well. So your podcast has been helpful not only by informing and validating our choice for home birth, but also in catalyzing a new kind of growth within our relationship to create more open and honest communication. So we can't thank you two enough.
Wow.
Those are like...
Yeah. Thank you, Stacy.
Wow. So awesome and humbling, and we're so grateful for those words. And I read those because they tie in with what we were talking about before we hit record and what's kind of been going on. So we don't need to get into details because they're just it's not that important to the greater scope. But before we got on this call today, before we dived into work, I owned some stuff. I wanted to own and acknowledge to you, Matthew. I wanted to apologize for some stuff, like things that I had just put out there. And, we had a conversation. Some might label it an argument, a fight,
disagreement
yesterday
in our own style, because we don't yell.
No,
we
don't.
But
we were going through it yesterday and having some opportunities to understand where the other was coming from and coming up against some walls with that, and frustration and
silent car rides, and we had a fight.
The stuff, yeah. And so what I was owning is, we are very practiced in telling each other our truths, is like the way I'll put that. Another way of putting it is we've developed thick skin to where we can say to each other how exactly what we're thinking and what it is without repercussion of hurting the other person's feelings.
Yeah, so there's an element of honesty and just saying what's on our mind and how we feel about something. There's an element of courage in being able to do that. And then there's an element of not taking stuff very personally and being able to hear that type of stuff. I
would add two more to that. Our favorite things we talk about on this show, trust and surrender.
Yeah.
So when I'm saying something to you, I'm trusting that you are able to handle whatever I have to say and surrendering to the possibility of however you respond.
I know you're going down a line, but I do want to provide some more context.
Okay. I was going to a little bit.
Okay, well, then you can...
No. I'm please, my love.
Babe. Okay. So the context I wanted to provide was that, we received these amazing emails from Carrie and reviews from Stacy. And, what you all hear on this show is a 30-minute to 1 hour snippet of our weekly lives. And you get a glimpse into an hour and a half conversation that happens, a small percentage of our week. What you aren't seeing is the other stuff, and like Sarah mentioned, we had a fight yesterday, and you mentioned, so we had our fight, which took place in the Target parking lot and kind of continued to home with some silence and some weird conversation. And then for about an hour afterwards, it was sort of let's try to clean up this mess and see what it all was about. And that type of stuff happens in our relationship. And as you pointed out, it kind of has happened a little bit more frequently over the past year. And so on the one hand, you've got our persona on the podcast, and you hear the funny banter and the
which is all genuine in how we are.
It is, and that is how we are. That is how we treat one another. And then what you don't see are some of the real moments, and what you also don't see are the reps.
Yeah,
the work that we put in on ourselves and on our relationship that allow us to go through those fights, and for them to be, just uncomfortable. Yeah, because fights always suck, but for them to be brief and for us to be tighter and just more connected afterwards. And then the reps that, we put in to allow the magic that happens on this show when we get together and we're really truly in our flow, for that stuff to happen as well. So The context I just wanted to set was, we love those emails and we love that acknowledgement. And that is us.
Yes.
But there's also the side of us where, just like every other couple out there, like, you go through stuff and you don't agree, and there's frustrations, and you get into it, and you experience the silences, and you might go to bed without cleaning things up, and we go through that too.
Yeah.
And so we just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that today, and just dive in a little bit deeper into that, give you guys a glimpse into that portion of our world, which is, I think very important.
Yeah. So thank you for all of that. I think that was great. What I want to share is a little bit of the rabbit hole I kind of went down into, or was going down into yesterday, and then how I was able to look at it with a little bit more clarity today and see what was going on with it. And what I could recognize today, and why I felt it was important to acknowledge it with you and clear that space, was, I shared that we are very practiced in speaking our truths to each other. It's easy to take advantage of that and spew or spit out a story, a non-truth, and try and make it a truth, if that makes any sense. So the non-truth I was spitting at you yesterday was that you don't support me. Now, that's the big blanket term. That's the Evel Knievel leap I made from one incident, one isolated thing, and made it, you don't support me. And it was so easy to ignore and not look at all the places, spaces, amazing ways you do support me, but that's what I was putting out there. And so in that moment of my emotion around it, I was making that my false truth, and not looking into the impact that potentially leaves on you to package up my bullshit with a truth wrapping paper and give it to you, because that's, well, it's not cool. First of all, it's not cool to do that, because then you're left with this thing that I don't trust you to support, blah, 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 whatever it is. So anyway, I just wanted to own that wasn't the truth. And so I wanted to do whatever I could to kind of pick up the pieces of that.
Yeah, I get that.
And then also there was something you said during our conversation yesterday that I wasn't really willing to look into further or explore at the moment. And you were saying something to the effect of, do you just think a lot of our life basically is too good to be true? This kind of thing of are you looking for something to be wrong here? Or are you looking for the other shoe to drop type of thing? And I don't think I wanted to look at that or explore that, because that is a lot of my previous programming in old relationships and life in general, just waiting for something bad to happen, basically. So I see that there is something to that. And so now I'm more open to seeing what that is and why that's popping up and why I want to look for something that's wrong. And I want to circle that in with, these amazing emails that we get, or comments, or whatever they are. When I see those, or when I read amazing words like that, and then it's, sandwiched in with a conversation like we had yesterday, it's real easy, especially in the emotionality, to think we're fakes. I'm a fake. We're frauds.
If they only knew, that type of thing.
Yeah, because, part of what we've chosen in our life and work and creative endeavors is to put ourselves out there in certain ways and to be vulnerable and to share aspects of our life. And so in doing that, of course, you're going to elicit response and feedback. And I don't know, I just looked at it like us having any argument or anything wrong with our relationship made us fakes, was in misalignment with this message we're aiming to put out there. And that's the kind of shitstorm I was circling around in.
Well, what you said earlier today when we were talking about it is that you felt the sense, it started to seem like the Instagram.
Yeah, like we were a filtered Photoshop projection of our relationship. And so people were seeing that and thinking, hashtag like relationship goals. That's what I want. And getting off, listening to our show and going and resenting and hating their husbands. Cause why don't we talk like that? And why don't we do that?
And that's I think that's the huge message that I wanted to talk about today is that, what you see is
it's that, but then there's an ellipsis. It's there's ... or it's there's multi layers to it, or I don't know. Is that?
Yeah, this is. I lost my train of thought, so let me catch it.
You had dad brain.
Yeah, I had dad brain.
Well, maybe let me take over for a second.
I'm gonna edit this out, by the way.
You are?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just pause.
So I know we're not fake. I know that. And what I can know now on the other side of it is what's important and the message that I really want to be sharing and the deliciousness of all of this that I want to share is that the truth is that we do work on ourselves and our relationship insanely much and hard and lovingly.
More than our show, more than our businesses.
Yeah, we work on ourselves first. And then as a result, that's how and why we're able to show up the way that we do, or why we're able to reach people or people resonate with what we're saying. And so an example of that would be when you see a high level performer, like a Janet Jackson or a Beyonce, when you see them performing, you are seeing the result of all of the work, of all of the reps. You're seeing that. You're not seeing when they fell on their ass in choreography or when they're crying in the trailer because they're tired and exhausted and they miss their family. You're not seeing that. And so, not saying we are Beyonce or Janet, but what I'm saying is, we're going to bring what we've got to something like this, the show that we love and put a lot of time and care and effort into. So of course, we're going to bring our practiced work. So you're seeing our movements, you're seeing our dance moves, you're not seeing all the effort that goes into it all the time.
And that's why it's so important to catch yourself when you're comparing.
Yeah. Or to have someone to help you catch it, because I wasn't really in a space to be catching anything yesterday.
Yeah, and this applies to me. For example, I follow some different men's, what's it called, Men's Health magazine.
Yeah,
I think that's what it's called. I follow them on Instagram, and you see all these people on there who are just insanely fit. They're the instructors on Men's Health, so it's very easy to say, man, I'm not doing anything because I'm not where that person is.
Right.
It's so easy to just do that. Yet I have no idea the amount of reps. I have no idea the lifestyle. And so it's so easy for us to do that, to see somebody and just, even if it's just a person you're passing in the grocery store, and you just take that little snapshot and you make that quick comparison. And for me, this resonates powerfully because I have compared myself for so many years to everybody else, financially, physically, emotionally, sexually, all over the place. Comparison has been one of those big blockages for me. So I think it's even more important that I want to talk about all the stuff on this show, because if there are people who are appreciating our relationship and how it comes across, I love that, and I want to acknowledge that, and I want to receive that and say thank you for that. And I also want to add in there, by the way, check out the next episode where we talk about some of the realness too, because that's important.
Yeah.
Because I just don't want someone to, like you said, turn off the episode and then give like a side eye to their partner because they aren't able to express themselves in a certain way, or because, you know, you may not have the back and forth that you know, we're able to create. And it's just important to me that, you know, this show is about, you know, at its core, it's about love, it's about empowerment, and that extends beyond the birth conversation.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
I mean, it's like doing it at home / keeping, loving, maintaining your home and all the people in it, you know?
Yeah. And your home might be your body, your body
your
temple.
internal. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, you know, loving your home and like loving yourself and, you know, because you mentioned it, we put a lot of work in on ourselves.
Yes.
On ourselves. And then we put in a lot of work on our relationship, on our partnership. And it's in that priority for us.
Right.
You know, and that's an interesting thing.
One thing I want to bring up, and you tackled it really well yesterday, even in some of how I was feeling, I could really appreciate what you said. So if you don't remember exactly what you said, maybe you can take it on fresh today and it'll be just as brilliant, if not more.
Cool.
But I made a comment, something to the effect of, I feel like we never fought before Maya. I feel like we never had arguments like this at this frequency or this magnitude before we had a child. And you addressed it very well. Do you remember that?
I remember saying to you that I really look at these as our opportunities to get more sharp.
Yeah.
And to become tighter, because when we get into these arguments, you know, that's when those reps that you've put in, that's when the work matters. And I talked about this on Having It All podcast. I'm like, it doesn't matter when things are going well, right? Like when you're excited and you're feeling the love for one another and you're turned on by one another, that's not when all the work and reps you put in matter. It matters when you just can't stand the other person and like everything about them frustrates you for those brief moments. And like, that's when it matters. Are you able to be patient? Are you able to be empathetic? Are you able to be kind? Because that's when all that stuff goes out the window and you aren't kind and you aren't patient and all you want to do is just get your point across. So what I said yesterday was, you know, I don't mind, even if it is a fact that we have had more arguments since Maya. I don't care. I'm fine with that. I don't judge that. I look at that as great. We have all these opportunities just to level up. And if we only had, you know, 1 a month last year, and now we have 2 a month, well, we have double the opportunities to level up. So guess what? We get to get to even higher heights. And I also remember saying that I don't even mind if we have some of these arguments in front of Maya, because in my mind, I have some vivid memories of the fights my mom and dad had. And my mom and dad didn't fight a lot in front of the kids. And I think that's because my mom and dad weren't doing a whole lot of anything, because my parents got divorced. My parents got divorced when I was 9. And so I remember a few like yelling fights, and those are seared into my brain. What I don't remember are any instances where they disagreed about something, but they were able to have an amicable conversation about it.
Where you saw a healthy conflict resolution.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why I don't mind if we have an argument in front of Maya, because Maya is going to watch us and she's going to watch how we interact. She's going to watch how I treat you and how you treat me. She's going to see the result of the reps. She's going to see the kindness that does come in and the empathic listening that does come in. And I think that those are the things that she'll take away from those moments, because we've had a handful of you know, disagreements, arguments, whatever, with Maya present.
Yeah.
And none of them did I regret doing that, because the way how we end them and the way that we treat each other. Gotcha.
And I think learning the value in not always having to agree is a great lesson to show an example of. And that was something, at least for me growing up, and then when I started navigating relationships and figuring out what the heck they were and how to do them, I always thought you had to agree.
Yeah.
You just had to. One person eventually had to see the other person's side and say, cool, like, you win, we're done here, we're both on this team now. It's been a very valuable lesson for me, and one that I'm keen on showing an example of, is there is a very poignant difference in agreement and understanding.
Yes.
And understanding is way more valuable, at least for me. And it's been huge for me. And I give myself little mini parties when I'm in a conversation with someone and I can say, I understand where you're coming from. I feel you understand where I'm coming from. And I still don't necessarily agree with you.
Yeah.
But we cool.
Yeah. If that's a hard idea to connect with, then I'll give you a real quick personal example. There was a fight that went down in my family about 2 years ago. And it rocked my family because there's never been a fight like this before. And so I didn't necessarily agree with how it should be handled, the way that my sisters wanted it to be handled. And so, they wanted it to be handled, in method A, and I was for method B. And we had a lot of conversations where we talked about it and we understood, I understood why they wanted method A. I understood, what method A was, but I didn't agree with it. I didn't agree that was the most effective route. So that's really the big difference between understanding and agreement. And like you said, I think it's part of a lot of our conditioning, the stories that we pick up, that you have to agree.
Right. That,
you don't end.
Or if you don't agree, you can't go forward.
Exactly.
You can't, there's nowhere for you to go then. You're at this epic impasse because you both can't be on the same team.
Yeah, and I think it takes maturity.
Absolutely.
To be able to recognize, listen, I don't agree with you, but doesn't mean I like you any less, doesn't mean I love you any less, doesn't mean I respect you any less, and I understand where you're coming from, and that's where we might agree to disagree, and you can keep it moving.
Right.
So you talk about that. You've written about that, I think, on your blog, the understanding versus agreement, and that comes up in some of your coaching conversations. I know,
yeah.
So I know it's big with you.
It is big for me because it's been such a big, valuable lesson for me. So now that I've kind of, when you kind of see the light on something a little bit more, you want to take it on fully and also share it with others. Look what I found. It's the newest thing. So,
and we've had plenty of instances where we didn't agree. Mm-hmm. And we worked very hard on understanding. Mm-hmm. And that's been, for me, I was not the person who would seek to understand others in a disagreement. I always wanted to get my point across. And I felt like if I could force my point across and you could just hear my point and get it, you would then get on my side.
Right, this would be over. We wouldn't have to go through this. Yeah.
And it wasn't until being presented with a book, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where he talks about seeking to understand before being understood. So I had that material. And then I was a part of a marketing company that was very, very health and wellness minded. And we had disagreements within the company. And I remember we were on a run because we would run every Friday. We'd do a 7-mile run. And one of the other guys on the team had a big conflict with me. So the 2 co-founders stopped us mid-run. And we gave each other, they had each of us speak our mind. And the other person had to say, okay, here's what I'm understanding you to say. And say it back until that person felt understood.
Yeah.
Because these 2 co-founders knew the importance of seeking to understand before being understood. So they had us practice that stuff. And it was really in that practice that it ingrained in my mind what can happen when you are intentional about trying to understand another person. And then what happens to their whole demeanor and their whole argument. And
it's amazing.
When somebody feels understood, that's one of the most fundamental things that we want as humans.
It really is.
Understanding and love. So when you feel understood, the other person may not totally disarm, but those weaponry comes down.
Something shifts. Yeah, what you're saying is what we refer to in our relationship as empathic listening.
Yeah.
Practicing empathic listening. And we do it all the time. And, if you're starting out with it or you want to try it out, it might feel a little silly at first because it might be as simple as Matthew saying, I feel frustrated when you do X, Y, and Z. And then I say, okay, so what I'm hearing you say is you're frustrated by X, Y, and Z. It might be that simple, but that's where you start. And I think a shift still happens even at that fundamental level of just repeating exactly what they say. There's a difference. But then when it gets a little bit murkier and it gets a little bit more convoluted and you're doing more of that work to figure out where they're coming from, what they're saying, like in our conversation yesterday, there's some big wins to be had there when you can really kind of dissect what someone is saying, especially if they're coming at you with emotion. Like I had a lot of yesterday. Someone's coming at me with a lot of emotion, to really be in that Zen Buddha space of looking through what they have to say and be like, I think this is what like you're telling me. And yeah, it's just great.
Yeah. I mean, this could be a 2-hour plus conversation, because we could go into so many different things that you and I have done, and some of the self-work and the frustrating conversations and the tears and the we could get into that, because that's all part of it.
It is. One thing that I was thinking, for the sake of time, we could maybe wrap this up with just sharing each of us one practice or thing that we have done on ourselves or each other that helps us be at a space where we present the way that we do, such to receive the awesome feedback that we have. Like, what's something that we've done? And then maybe I thought it would be helpful to share an example of when it is very difficult, when you're in that space of, the side eye look and you want to mush someone's face in. How do you get out of that? Like, what do you do? Like, what breaks that pattern? What breaks that cycle? Maybe something for you, a specific example that had, or that you do or try to do, or something you've seen me do. I don't know. I can think of something if you want me to go first to kind of give an example.
Yeah, go first with the first part of what you said, and then we'll go into our examples.
Okay. So I didn't have an example for the first part. I had an example for the second part.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, remind me again, the first part of the first request.
One practice or thing that we have done or do that you think contributes to how we're able to show up the way that we do.
So over the years, I've had some sort of mindfulness practice, and that all boils down to self-awareness. And for me, the importance of understanding where my emotion is coming from, like what button is being pushed, has helped. I'm a visual person, and I like analogies. So, people use the phrase, you push my buttons. Well, for myself, I think, why, okay, if this person is pushing a button of jealousy, why do I have a jealousy button?
Oh.
Because if I didn't have a jealousy button, you couldn't push it.
Right.
And so that has been pivotal for me, and that's been the hardest work, honestly. The hardest work has been going internal and reflecting and opening up those closet doors, which I've shut since I was a kid, and sifting through the stuff and being willing to be honest. And as I, and it's taken a long time, and it's something that I continue doing. But what that has helped me is to understand where my buttons are, why they're there. And then if somebody is pushing them, it allows me to not view them as an enemy or view them as somebody who's trying to violate me or cause me harm or trauma, because they aren't doing anything that I haven't summoned or created in some way, but B, that I don't already have the receptor for. You know what I mean? Like if somebody came up to me and said, I don't know, you look like a dog. All right. There's no, I'm like, okay, whatever, because I don't have a dog okay, it's a terrible example.
It's not a sensitive subject for you.
Yeah, it's not a sensitive subject for me. And that, by the way, that was a terrible example. But like,
what if someone said, your wife is stupid?
Yeah, if someone said my wife is stupid, I would, okay, that's not gonna hurt me on a personal level, because I know it's not true.
Exactly, it's not true.
And so the whole point is, it's allowed me to not take things personally, and it's allowed me to always, I think, put the lens back on myself, which means I have the power. Because as soon as the other person is able to make me feel a certain way, then they have the power. And in order for me to feel a different way, they have to do something different. And I'm not interested in you having the power over me for where I have to then want you to behave differently or say something different in order for me to feel different. So I look internal and I say, why do I have that button? And I say, let me work on shifting that button.
I like that. I would say for myself, it's been about owning my part in the co-creative process. of whatever's happening. And so by that, I mean, whatever circumstance has come up, whatever argument we're in, looking at, I am an equal part of this situation. I am a contributor to this experience, this thing called marriage, this thing called our relationship, whatever. And so nothing could be happening without some part of me having a say in it or a action in it. And that's been very powerful. And it's been an ongoing process for me over years in other aspects of life. And so then it carries over into this. And with that means letting go of any sort of victim mentality, that I'm a victim of you, to you, that you're doing something to me, that life is doing something to me, and that I'm helpless to the situation. So one of my huge practices to be able to show up powerfully in this relationship and then be a representative of this relationship has been owning whatever it is that I have in it as well. And maybe that looks like looking at you and who you're showing up as and realizing I attracted you into my life for multiple reasons and I created you in my life. And so with picking up that stick of having you in my life, there's another end to that stick. And that looks like whatever our potential combinations were, of in this point in time, in this space, this conversation had this potential outcome and I signed on for that. So enjoy the ride, sweetheart, because you're here. So that's been part of it. And that's what's been able to allow me to deal with any anger that pops up in a healthy way. Because one thing that I've noticed about myself is I've rejected anger for many years as a viable emotion to have. Anger just meant you were mad at other people, and being mad at other people is a bad thing because then people don't like you. So I somehow along the way adopted this thing of anger not being an emotion I can have. And so I think I really dulled and shoved down in there anger. And so now when it comes up, it's like, okay, what am I going to do with this? How can I use this in a productive way? So that's been part of it as well. And not denying how I'm feeling, but instead looking at a way to reconfigure it in a healthy way. So that's what I would say there.
And I can just say from somebody who's, obviously been in some of those situations where we didn't agree about something, I appreciate the work that you've done on yourself. I appreciate that context that you adopt and the responsibility that you've, in the co-creative process, because then you come to the table, you come into the conversation being empowered yourself, understanding that you helped to create the situation as much as I did. And so you can help to create a different situation,
right.
A different experience.
Right.
And I don't know, I just, I've never felt with you in any of our conversations that went south that there was no hope for the conversation to change. I just, and I appreciate your ability to feel your emotion and then kind of it goes through and you're then able to view the situation for what it is, and we look for some sort of resolution, and we both are always interested in the common experience, the final result of getting back to that loving place,
right.
Because neither of us are interested in being apart from one another and not wanting to kiss and touch and hold, and
right.
And so when we're in our arguments, man, those emotions get fiery, and you just want me to sleep on the couch type of thing, and it's just a fascinating. Relationships are fascinating. They really are.
So the coming back point that you mentioned is kind of what I want to move into
what
next
helps us come back.
Wrap up potentially, unless we go down some other road. But where I'm thinking we could wrap up is, how to come back from that. And ego gets really inflated.
Ego is a mother.
In times. Ego is a beast.
Yeah.
And it's ego, in case you're like, what? I don't know what that is. I've never, is when you're in that argument and it's over and you're like, fuck him. I'm not going to make the next. No, I don't, because he needs to know that he's wrong. I'm right. And I'm not going to make the first move to make things better. He has to do it. He has to be sorry. He has to be guilty. All things I've said in my brain at one point or another. And that's that ego is. And it can be paralyzing. It can be crippling. It's what can keep you in your bedroom, locked up, silent for an afternoon. And I've done that once or twice.
Or a couple days or whatever it is.
Yeah. So that's a beast. So why did I say that?
So you're saying one of the ways that helps you get back to a powerful space is recognizing when ego is playing a part.
Yeah, and that's what's happening. And I mean, it takes time. It's not overnight. But to give some examples of how we have and do come back, one thing I would say for myself is it's very natural for me to go into service mode, to go into, do something, an act of service for another person that I love. So even when I'm frustrated with you, or I don't really want to talk to you or see you or whatever, I will still cook for you. I will still put away laundry because that's just part of who I am. And so I can think of a few instances where we kind of had a thing and you were gone or something and you came back and dinner was made for you. I left you a note that dinner was there or I did this. So that to me is my extension of we may not be 100% cool right now, but other things are still going to function. Like our house is still going to run. I'm still going to do this. So that's my way of showing, even though I can't get up, walk over to you and apologize or whatever it is, like this is my roundabout way of like curbing that ego a little bit.
And I've appreciated that. And it's the olive branch extended and you extending the bridge and meeting me halfway, and then I can extend my bridge and we're back. Right.
And one thing that I can say about you that comes up frequently, I would say when we're in a, whatever it is, a tiff or something, you tend to be the first person to extend physical touch. So even though I can tell you may not be very cool with me in the moment, you'll still hug me or you'll still like give me a pat on the butt or, like kiss my cheek or something. You do that. And so I am at a place now, again, after practice, I can acknowledge that and see that that's how you are extending yourself and that's how you're putting yourself out there, even though things might not be back to whatever our experience of normal is. But that's how I've experienced you.
Cool. It's been intentional. So I have three things.
Okay.
I have three things that when we're in the thick of it would have helped to get back to that place of loving on each other.
Okay.
The first is space. And sometimes that's not what I want at all.
Right.
Space in between, what the heat of the moment, and it's, I don't know, like it's necessary at times, and a small amount of space, I'll say for myself and our dynamic is necessary. What I haven't really loved is going to bed when things are off. But sometimes that space is necessary too. And so it's understanding, for me, the space aspect is understanding what you might need. But I do know just from my experience that you put space in between that stimulus and response. And within that space, you have the opportunity to choose. And so by putting a little bit of space in between, an argument or words that are said, that to me has helped the ego to quiet down and then the love to really bubble back up. So the first is space. The second is something I actually haven't done, but I read it somewhere and I thought it was great. And that's just changing the environment.
Oh.
So for example, like breaking it up. Like if you always fight in the bedroom and then you realize you're getting into a fight, go outside and go walk.
Yeah.
And I like that because, I think you can get into that mental sort of wheel of this is where we fight and this is what happens and every time it looks like this and then I do that and you get into that routine.
Expecting it.
Yeah, and so you break up that routine a little bit and it might jar a few things loose. That's number 2. Number 3 is what I try to do, and that's do the opposite of what I feel like doing. So you talked about the physical touch. I know because we've had this conversation and I've asked you, what do you need? Or no. I don't know if I asked you. I think you told me. When you said, Matthew, when I'm in that moment, when I'm feeling full of my ego, like you can diffuse it with a hug.
Yeah. So insert practice here. Something to do, and we have done this, is when you are in great times, when you are in smooth sailing, share with each other those things that come up for you that could be helpful to get you out of what the funk is.
Yeah.
And it's almost like this strategy session that you're having of like, hey, I want you to win when this is happening. So do these things and you have a pretty great shot at bringing me back to neutral. So we've done that for sure. And that's something I told you in one of those times. So I would definitely recommend that to every couple is when you are in a great space, share what you like or what helps to get you back into that love space.
So I'm not saying this is you.
Oh boy.
But it's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, right?
Oh my
Like
God.
when it's like for myself, if I know that, hey, listen, when I go into Mr. Hyde mode, this is what's going to help me out. It's like you tell each other what the antidote is.
I like Hulk better than Jekyll and Hyde. It'll help you get out of Hulk mode.
Yeah, but sometimes Hulk mode is what you want.
Maybe in the bedroom.
No, I'm yes, but I'm a comic book guy, so like there's a lot of instances where they wanted
All
Hulk.
right, whatever. Moving on.
They didn't
Jekyll
want
and Hyde
Bruce
is
Banner.
great. I love Jekyll and Hyde.
So Jekyll and Hyde. So anyway, back to what I was saying. I try to do the opposite of my instinct, and so my instinct says to assert myself and to like force things, and so the opposite is to listen. Right? My instinct tells me that I want to be far away from you. So the opposite is let me go and put my arm around you or pat your butt, like you said. My instinct is to say something mean because I'm feeling hurt or I'm feeling on the defensive. And so the opposite of that is to, it might just be quiet again, or it might be to ask a question. And that's helped me. And it's been challenging. I mean, I don't think any of this stuff is super simple because when we get into arguments and fights, you go to your default.
Yeah.
Like you go to what you've practiced for so long, and if what you've practiced is unhealthy ways of being and handling yourself in a fight, then that's what you go to. That's what you've been repping.
Yeah.
So it takes time, but like I said, that awareness is huge. Awareness of how you are in an argument, awareness of what your buttons are, and obviously, I think I could talk about this stuff for a while.
Yeah. Well, another fun thing that we do, maybe this is the way you started out in your life, is, we shared some fun lingo here, like truths and empathic listening and seeking to understand. Sometimes when we're in that space of, we're in a good space, but we are like being silly and passive aggressive and sarcastic, we'll use some of that jargon in a funny way. Like, my truth is that I want you to do the dishes.
Oh, we
blah,
say,
blah, blah. And it can be really obnoxious and funny.
We say it all the time. Yeah, like we like listening or watching The Office, and it was funny to us when we saw the couple Jim and Pam on The Office start talking like that. Because we do it too.
Thank you for acknowledging my feelings. Now, what I would like to say to you, like that sort of talk,
You told me the other night, you said, Matthew, like, you have to stop doing that because it's annoying. Because I do it in jest all the time. It's so funny to me to like, babe, my truth is, and fill in the blank. I find that hilarious.
Truth.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, I feel great.
Yeah.
Talking about this. I think it's been really cool and, cathartic and therapeutic for us to, kind of not extend, but clear up and heal part of what was going on yesterday and to just share as well, honest. Give a little bit more insight into us and our life. And, it's been part of our journey. And now as parents, as partners, as husband and wife, as friends, as business partners, all of that, that's the real, this is us.
Yeah. And, honestly, real talk, I think we have a kick-ass relationship. I think the way that we manage ourselves in smooth seas and rough seas is awesome. There's always room for improvement, and there's it's this self-work stuff is never ending, and so I'm okay with being humbled and learning and it's like, hey Matt, you could have done this differently, or you fell short here. I'm okay with that because the result is what I think is a fucking beautiful relationship.
Thanks, babe. I love you.
Love you too, mama.
Well, there you have it. If you have questions for us about anything that we talked about, we're happy to share more or answer questions or whatever. I mean, we're here, we're accessible, we're open books, and I'd love that. I'd love to, see some more dialogue on this because, empowered couples means empowered pregnancies and births and babies and children, and the ripple effects are just
totally. I mean,
going.
This is a podcast where, I think it's safe to say most of the listeners are looking to procreate and just make more people.
Right.
And so if we're all, at least some part of us is about making awesome people and
be an awesome
person
like yourself.
Yeah, people who want to go out and be loving and kind and generous and create with others and harmonious, then let's talk about the stuff and let's talk about where it begins, and that's with ourselves.
That's awesome. So some action items for you, listener, coming out of this episode. If you feel inspired, reach out to us. You can email us at hello@diahpodcast.com, or you can go to our website, diahpodcast.com, and there's a contact form. There's also some really cool stuff that we've added to that page, like a resources page of some of our favorite things that we've used in pregnancy, birth, and postpartum and parenthood, as well as ways that you can support the show and send us love in the form of likes, subscribes, reviews, or even some monetary donations, one time or recurring. You can do that through our website on the support us page. And that just helps us keep the show running, keeps us able to have awesome conversations like this, get some new equipment, like replace Matthew's old ratty headphones, things like that. So go check out the website. Matthew's done some cool things to it and updated it. And while you're at it, go listen to my show too, the Balance and Motherhood podcast. Check it out. Drop me a review in there. That's greatly appreciated.
It's a brand new show. It's awesome.
Brand new.
I'll be publishing episodes 4 and 5 today.
Wonderful.
This isn't going to go out today, but
this week.
Yeah, this week. So by the time you hear this, there'll be at least 5.
We are from the past.
Yeah. Well, there'll be at least 5 episodes of Sarah's show, the Balance and Motherhood podcast, and check it out.
Cool. Thank you so much, Matthew. I appreciate you being willing to go on this whole journey with me, but then this has been really cool. So
this was cool.
Yeah.
So you had a great idea, and I'm excited to hear what everyone out there thinks of this. Yes. And cool.
Thanks, everyone. Love you.
Peace.